All right, hey everybody. Today I'm joined by Ben. He is an astrologer of a different type. I use evolutionary astrology with Placidus house. He uses equal houses. So today we're going to go kind of back and forth and look at Adolf Hitler's chart. I'm going to go ahead and let him start off.
I've kind of dabbled in astrology, but I'm not a professional astrologer or whatever. So yeah, I think astrology is interesting because it kind of relates back to Carl Jung's collective unconscious and his concept of the archetypes. I don't follow the Placidus way of what most traditional astrologers do it. I do equal style or yeah equal style of reading the chart, not whole signs houses. I guess they call it equal houses. Yeah. So it's almost like the same thing as whole signs houses, but it's a little bit different. From my understanding, whole signs houses is like they kind of, let's say you're born in 2 a.m. So they don't exactly start on 2 a.m to map out the chart. So like they need to make it all equal like pizza, but they don't exactly start at the exact time of your birth. So equal signs is the same thing. They want everything equal, but they exactly start at let's say 201 or 202. So like I use equal signs when I'm reading this kind of stuff for as a hobby.
Yeah, so equal houses, like the whole houses, they would line a sign up with the house. And you can see it's a little uneven here, but equal houses, the signs are equal size, but they're a little off kilter from the houses, which kind of gives a little more intricacy than whole house astrology because the cusp and the sign actually line up. So I guess that's the main
Mm-hmm.
difference. All right, so we're
Mm-hmm.
going to start off with the sun, moon, and ascendant. You want to go ahead and lead us there?
So Hitler's sun in Taurus and in the seventh house. So sun in Taurus is, well, you know, um, traditionally Taurus is the sign of it's the classic sign for being stubborn, and I guess Hitler is stubborn, but he is fixed. Taurus is fixed Earth sign. That means it has a way of attach. It has a way of attaching to physical, concrete things. It represents your like sensual pleasure, Venusian sensual pleasures, and so in extension of that, Taurus kind of represents material possessions, money, finance, and things like that. They also kind of lends to like earthly, sensual, artistic talent or skill or some kind of hobby. So seventh house, it's Sun in Taurus. It will be expressed in the seventh house. So the house is the area where the planets get to represent the signs. So seventh house is almost always has natural affinity with Libra, and Libra is about interpersonal relationships, social harmony, also artistic stuff. Yeah, but it's all about interpersonal mutual relationship. So with Hitler, with his sun in Taurus in the seventh house, he would well obviously he has artistic skills, so that kind of shows. But what's interesting about this is about interpersonal relationship. Now he has the sun expressed in the seventh house, which is the Libra symbol, which is represented by the scales. Now stereotypically we associate Libra to sweetness, grace, charm, but I think the archetype of the symbol of scales, it's the only inanimate object in the entire 12 zodiac signs, which means it actually strives to be objective and impartial, even if it starts quite awkward in going about that, because it goes around and tries to get different viewpoints and tries to have that sense of balance between everything. So like I guess you could say, if it could go one extreme, it could have a distorted sense of point of view when the scales are go one extreme over the other, something like that. So yeah, but he also has an ascendant in Libra. Ascendant in Libra. So apparently he has ascendant in Libra, which is, well, traditionally if you read about Libra, it's supposed to be like charming and diplomatic and all of that kind of stuff. So most people in the typology, they type Hitler as actually an NF. I mean, Kiersey Senior, the original David Kiersey, actually kind of typed him as an ENFJ. But David Mark, Keirsey, the son of David Keirsey, the psychologist. They both named David Keirsey. Anyway, he typed him as an INFP. So NF is the like corresponding theme, and I guess in personality database they voted for him as an INFJ. So the I guess that's and actually David Keirsey associated diplomatic intelligence to idealists. So that fits well with the Libra archetype, Libra being diplomatic. Only in this case, well, I mean, I guess it's diplomatic coming from their point of view, from their extreme point of view, but
Mhm.
there's also, yeah. So yeah, it's weird, but like I mean, he could have saved a lot of lives if he just remained as a painter, but that did not happen, and for some reason, those scales tipping one over the other, and now I guess combined with the Taurus symbolism of stubbornness and just just having that kind of fixed mindset of like this is the reality the way I perceive it. I guess what I'm saying is combined with that mindset, society as something to be civilized. So like white Aryan race in the top, and like the Jews and whatever down somewhere there below, something like that. And yeah, and actually there's a quote that says that I forgot who said this, but like it says something like you are more likely people who do bad things that believe that they're doing bad things are more likely to get exhausted, but like bad people who think they're doing good things are less likely to stop because they think they're doing the right thing. And I guess that's like the Hitler case here. It's interesting because for when I first got in here and I wasn't really studying. I haven't read or studied in depth Hitler's biography or his chart. I was thinking maybe he could have some kind of extreme position in his astrology, like maybe a Scorpio rising or something like that. But that wasn't the case. And then when I read his bio, it actually seems to fit. That also kind of breaks the stereotype against the sweet, charming, always diplomatic, graceful Libra. People forget that it's an air sign. It's supposed to be impartial, and it's the only symbol that actually represent an object, an inanimate object. It means it doesn't really care about it, the internal emotional feelings once once it's evaluating things. It can be kind of cool, maybe even cold in that sense. So yeah, that's Libra. It's not as intense as Scorpio, right? It's weird because people think Scorpio has a cold detached thing going on, but there's so many things going on inside of them. Or
Mhm.
not just Scorpio specifically, but like people with a lot of Scorpio placements, planets, or maybe even eighth house where it's natural where it has natural affinity. So yeah. That's Sun. Wow, I talk too much. So that's Sun in Taurus, ascendant, and then the Moon, right? So the moon in Capricorn. Well, this one is like a no-brainer because moon in Capricorn, well, Capricorn is known to be a no nonsense, maybe even cold and dry. So moon represents emotions, right? So yeah, so like he is not that fluid and sensitive with his moon emotional nurturing side, or that could have been his experience growing up with his emotions as well. We can see that play out in the third house. So third house is naturally affiliated with the Gemini house. So communication, that's also another air sign where it's supposed to be objective. I mean, they try to be impersonal and objective about things. So I guess we could see how in this thing, he has those combinations where he strives to be impartial about everything, even if he looks diplomatic or sociable in doing it, something like that. That's my interpretation. Yeah, but I think I forgot to explain ascendant. Ascendant is how they come across to other people. What I mean. That's a person's mask, and it could lend itself to physical appearance as well. That's the ascendant, and then the sun sign is the ego or the basic cells. Yeah, I'm just explaining that because I feel like I did not briefly explain what they're all about. But so that's my summary about all those three major planet positions in the equal signs houses. But I think I'm not sure if the Placidus version of this differs much. Does it does it differ much?
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't think the houses are really any much different as far as its placements go. Let me just take a quick peek real quick. Yeah, on your equal houses though, the MCs it's the cusp of the 10th house here, but it was like the cusp of the 10th house is over here and the MC's there. Why was that?
That's the equal version, right?
That's the equal house. I'm just asking. You didn't mention it or anything. It's nothing that you did. I'm just saying like why is the MC here? But like, isn't the MC and equal
Mm-hmm.
houses on the 10th house cusp too, or is that just something different?
Well, I could be wrong about this. I haven't paid much attention to the midheaven or the MC, but I think I'm not sure if it's always correlated with the 10th house in the equal houses.
As Ben said, he has his house in the sun sign, or his sun sign in Taurus in the 7th house. So it's right there in the cusp of the descendant, and you can see Mercury there too, just to jump a little bit ahead. So I think forming relationships would be a very big thing for him in this lifetime, and that he couldn't do things alone. One of the things that Hitler did do, I think, towards the end is he tried doing everything himself because he was just like such a control freak, probably with the Capricorn moon being a part of that down here in the third. But also, one interesting thing about Hitler was that he was a vegetarian and he was really like an advocate for animals. So anytime like some vegan or some vegetarian gives you the guilt trip that they're superior to you, reminding that Hitler was a vegetarian. He had all this stuff here just to jump ahead a little bit with that. That's pretty weird right there that it's like a dead on conjunction with Mercury and Venus, or sorry, Mars and Venus. But it was real
Mm-hmm.
interesting that forming relationships is a big thing for him, and being an artist, of course, like he was originally an artist, but he was a very concrete artist. I guess most of his art was like painting buildings from around Europe and stuff like that. And they look
Yeah.
kind of dull and drab. And I think that was a big criticism. And people told him, well, you need to be an architect, not an artist. And that really kind of one of the things that seemed to really set him off over the edge.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, like his art? Like, why do you think it was so concrete and people think that he was like an INFJ?
This one really like throws me off. Like I get that people have assessed maybe his speeches or like his overall style at work and how he cannot function in the logistics per se, or things like that. But I mean, come on, he got rejected in art because he's not imaginative, and like imagination is like a very to me it's a very good deal when we're trying to look at NI DOMs. That's just for me. I mean, like, I don't know, I have like bells ringing inside of me when someone claims that they are NI DOM but they're not that imaginative. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? And like he has a lot of planets in Taurus, which is really a fixed earth concrete sign. So like
Mm-hmm.
the Libra stuff, or like that third house which has natural affinity with Gemini, they kind of uplift, I guess, the concrete a little bit. And especially with Libra, because it likes to like think about like ideals and justice and fairness and all that shit or something. But like he has a lot of he has a lot of fixed concrete stuff too. So it's kind of like, yeah, he's an interesting case. But yeah, I am very tempted to actually think he might be an IS blank J, and I guess John B typed him that way. Most of the times, when NI DOMs have idea or ideology that they want to improve the society, right? It will kind of reflect on like their raw perception or cognition about things. So maybe you could, I feel like, your raw cognition or perception could be seen in your works of art. So when your style is like very concrete, and it's not just that he's very concrete, he also dislikes like abstract art. He calls them degenerate art, right? And like he built museums to make fun of abstract art because he likes conservative Germany so much. It makes me hard in that lens to think that he's actually intuitive, kind of more concrete actually.
I was talking about the 7th house sun, which is making this conjunction here to Mercury and the descendant. Don't want to jump ahead too much, but yeah, a
Yeah.
need to build relationships, a need to be a speaker, a need to develop like keen speaking skills to kind of fire up the masses, really. And he has this
Uh-huh.
Libra ascendant. And you talked about the Libra ascendant here, which is oddly enough, his houses line up just right with mine. My Libra ascendant's like 25 degrees and 40 minutes or something like that. So it's really
Uh-huh.
odd. One thing I do notice with INFJs is they have a lot of stuff going on here in ascendant. He doesn't have too much stuff going here, but that Uranus conjunction is really Uranus retrograde actually is conjuncting his ascendant. He has all this stuff over here in the seventh house. They have like the seesaw battle of stuff going back and forth. I did a chart reading for someone who was an INFJ, and it kind of did seem to add up. And Kurt Cobain also had that kind of going on too. A lot of stuff like going to descendant and the midheaven too. It's like this battle going on, like all these squares and oppositions just fighting back and forth, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
But again, more artistic energy over here with this Libra ascendant. They're both ruled by Venus, as been mentioned as well. So it's very artistic, very seeking fairness and seeking beauty and seeking justice and all that. And I think he probably had a really distorted view of justice with this Uranus conjunction over here. So I think that
Uh-huh.
really gave him some weird, strange ideas. And his childhood growing up was pretty interesting as well. Go down to the moon over here in Capricorn in a third house. So his love and need for the concrete. I know we're talking about like why is his art so concrete. I think up here he had his north node, just to jump ahead a little bit. It's kind of hard to talk about one point without talking about others to
Oh.
me.
Oh, you meant astrology placement. Why is he concrete?
Yeah,
That was your question a while ago. Yeah. Well,
like
I
why
think
is his
it's
art
because
so concrete?
yeah,
But
I would answer that because of his Taurus placements. So many in there, like Sun,
yeah.
Venus, Mercury.
But oddly enough, that's like one of the main signs for artistic and beauty and stuff like that.
Yeah, but that's concrete. Like Taurus is very concrete.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyways,
Like
one reason I
mm,
think for that explanation is because he has a south node all here in the stellium with Jupiter and the moon, and he has this artistic north node up here, which is actually conjunct Chiron, which is about healing others, and healing himself. And
uh-huh.
Cancer is ruled by the moon, which is really intuitive. He has a really interesting nodal story, I think, because Hitler actually looks like a pretty decent guy until you get into his nodes. Seems like. I mean,
Mhm.
this is pretty damning right here. This Pluto Neptune conjunction and this Mars Venus conjunction is pretty violent. But yeah, he
Uh-huh.
has like this need to be more open and more intuitive and more empathic and more loving and caring. And he also has intercepted signs too, because the houses of Placidus are swallowing the Capricorn and the Cancer up here. So he has a really hard expressing that in an outward thing, and it's probably like really frustrating. It's like having a square there. So, anyways, all this like South Node, Moon stuff, energy, like, oh, everything has to be concrete, nothing can be abstract, is kind of holding him back. And I think that's kind of like why he had such
Mhm.
a hard time kind of abstracting things like that. So maybe he kind of went against the intuition. I don't know how Nazi Germany and Austria was back then, but I don't know if they are like today where they really discourage spirituality and artistic endeavors and things like that, like they do today. And like if you do it, you're kind of this crazy woo woo nut, you know?
Mhm. Also, his Sun, Mercury, and Venus are all in the Taurus in the seventh house. Like the seventh
Mm-hmm.
house has natural affinity with Libra.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, traditional astrology doesn't do it like that, but I do. So to me, it makes sense.
Yeah, and interesting enough, the ruler of his ascendant and the ruler of a chart is Venus, and Venus is also the final dispositor, being in its own sign of Taurus. So, like art and beauty and relationships is like a huge thing for him, or should have been a huge thing for him, but he went a different route.
So he's looking at the entire ideology as some kind of art that he's working on. I think that's how I would interpret everything, honestly, in relation to his chart, especially. So, like like Aryan race, is beautiful, and then everything else is, well, the Jews are they don't fit in his image, in his like image of like how he's shaping the work of art.
Yeah, I mean, he had his nadir down here in the fourth house is in Aquarius. And I was reading a little bit about him. I haven't read much about him. I read like his wiki biography, and he grew up with two siblings that were kind of developmentally disabled. They had some like kind of retardation or something like that. And he was big on eugenics, and he saw like tall
Mm-hmm.
blonde people over 6 foot with blue eyes as the ideal human when he was only
Right.
5'8" himself and had brown hair and brown eyes, which is really kind of odd. He had like these real odd Like I
Yeah.
guess maybe that Uranus retrograde kind of conjuncting
Hmm.
his ascendant up there kind of threw off like what was the expected idea of how to look, and it was kind of the opposite of him, and he had some kind of reverse vanity there or something else, real weird phenomenon. All right, I guess we'll jump back to yours, and you can look at Mercury, Venus, and Mars, I guess.
Yeah. So Mercury in the Aries in the sixth house. So Mercury in Aries. Yeah. So Mercury represents intellect and communication in Aries. So Aries is not very, traditionally logical. It's not like, yeah, it's very more passion based type of archetype. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it loves it loves challenges. He does like the warrior spirit. So Mercury in Aries, you could imagine that as someone who is fueled by their passion, and I guess they're also more straightforward about communicating things. They're probably more brash about it. So yeah, but it's in the sixth house. So
Mm-hmm.
in my point of view, sixth house has natural affinity with Virgo. Virgo is an earth sign. That's another earth sign, by the way, pointing to concrete. So sixth house or Virgo house is more mutable compared to the earth signs, but it deals with order. Is quite obvious with the way he speaks or with his speeches, because although he is filled with passion and inspiration, there is a certain, I guess, practicality to how he would rouse the his audience or the germination. So it's not like, how should I put it? It's not like thoughtless kind of passion. It's not like just fire, like fire. It's like fire with some earth. So like, but anyway, that's another. The sixth house has natural affinity with Virgo. Yeah, that's another Earth sign in there, Mars in Taurus, fixed Earth sign, but in the seventh house. Again, seventh house is about supposedly where the sign gets expressed. In this case, in the seventh house, which is the house of relationships, is the natural house for Libra. Yeah, it's. I mean, there's so many Earth signs in this chart, I would say, and a lot of Libra. So I mean, I would say Mars in Taurus is not like compared to something like maybe Mars in Leo or Mars in Aries. It's more like this like slow burn energy, like from a bull. So that's probably why why he's so stubborn and tenacious with what he wants, and also the fact that it is applied in the seventh house or the Libra house. So like it makes for stubbornness with the sense of ideals that he wants. So if that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, Taurus is like the classic stubborn sign.
Especially with other people, seeing it's conjunct with Venus, like his relationships, he's stubborn and has to be right and has to kind of boss people around, kind of be in charge. It seems like.
Venus in Taurus. Well, this person definitely has very good taste in aesthetics. Taurus is naturally ruled by Venus, along with Libra. I mean, Taurus and Libra are both naturally ruled by Venus. So when Venus is in Taurus, it has to have some natural talent for concrete aesthetics. But I mean, like the art school rejected him because I guess they're looking for abstraction, and he didn't really provide that. But I mean, based on that standard of aesthetics, yeah, and also the fact that it's under also again seventh house, the Libra house, I think, yeah, he's definitely an artistic person. So I guess he's really frustrated that he got rejected in that art school.
So Mercury has been said in the sixth house in Aries, so he was a very fiery, passionate speaker. One reason I couldn't type him is because he speaks German and he doesn't speak English, and vice versa. I'm not going to learn German just to type Adolf Hitler.
Yeah.
He was known for his speeches and his fiery passion when he talks and stuff like that. And just this
Hmm.
Mercury conjunction with the Sun that's on the descendant, so he made him very charismatic and very born leader because he had just this conjunction right here with the descendant, which is not written. Well, it's right here. The descendant, Mercury and Venus. So he was just a natural born speaker, a natural born communicator. He's just very direct and straightforward, which that would match an INFJ and ISTJs having direct communication style. And you can see up here his Venus and his Mars are conjunct, and he has a Venus retrograde as well. So he probably had a real strong, I think he was really striving towards this North Node and Cancer energy, trying to become an artist, but He had this, like I mentioned before, this concrete stuff just holding him back. Like, no, it's supposed to be this way and real rigid. And well, art's like astrology; it's very open for interpretation and very individualistic. So, and I think this made him very had a temper. I've seen a lot of people with this conjunction too are like bisexual and things like that as well. And he, I
Really?
guess he had a lot of mistresses. There was a rumor, I couldn't confirm, that he has one testicle. Yeah, there's a.
Okay.
I guess they
Yeah.
found medical records saying that one of his testicles never descended down. He had a lot of
Yeah.
mistresses, and like I said, and I guess they found a lot of like porn and stuff on him. So this is coming from the internet,
Yeah.
so it's kind of hard to true what distinguish and not. But
Yeah.
his failure as an artist, he probably made him really, really impatient, especially with other people right now. He probably real INFJ thing is like you have to live up to these ideals. I'm not going to live up to these
Right.
ideals, but you're going to live up to these ideals. And if you don't, I'm going to jump down your throat and tell you how much of an idiot you are. That's kind of a very INFJ thing. So he's probably real
Mm-hmm.
short with people. And because at the end, like I said, like he was getting real frustrated with him losing and stuff. So he's like, he started calling all the shots and his health started deteriorating and stuff like that. And he probably thought he would have died just because of the stress. But yeah, he was
Mm-hmm.
just very volatile and very angry. And
Right.
he really needed to pick and
Uh-huh.
find the right relationships, but I think he just kind of indulged in those luxuries and things like that, because that's
Mm-hmm.
also about monetary things and luxuries and riches and things like that. So I think he was just kind of impulsive and indulged and
Yeah.
really wanted to be a leader and be in charge with all this energy right here. All this stuff is kind of opposed this Uranus right here. So he
Yep.
really wanted to do things differently. He wanted to be different. Like you could see that he was probably a real vain person himself. He had his
Right.
little mustache and it was always
Yeah.
trimmed
I
perfectly.
agree.
So I think he had a lot of vanity and stuff as well. Do you even consider the outer planets? I know.
I don't. So I'm gonna just do Jupiter and Saturn. Yeah, Jupiter in Capricorn. So that's another Earth sign there. I the way that I interpret Jupiter is like, since it's a kind of a expansive planet or symbol, I think the right way to interpret Jupiter is something like quote unquote like lucky planet in a way. So so for example, like Jupiter in for Hitler, Jupiter in Capricorn, so it kind of means that he will feel expansive or lucky when he is focused on his career or something like that. Or like, yeah, so like he will have natural talents leaning towards like Capricorn stuff because, his Jupiter is in there. I guess that fits because he does climb the career ladder or hierarchy because like he was spotted having speeches in like, small groups of people, and sort of that's how he got noticed. And then I guess he played into that, and then he did not let it go. So like Capricorn climbing, with like the symbol of like Capricorn climbing, that's how he did it too, with that kind of skill in the context of that time. So he probably saw he would be successful if he kept on working towards his goal, with in politics, or yeah, something like that, or yeah, or influencing, German politics or something like that. So yeah, sorry, I'm having a hard time explaining Jupiter, but like, yeah, I mean, he is probably going to be feel more expansive and lucky in that kind of career political goal. That's how I see it. In the third house, third house is like communication, and also it might involve siblings because it's the natural house for Gemini. So yeah, he is indeed lucky, and he did have a platform, and his career grew in that field of communication, and he did work towards it. Like, it's quite goal driven in that sense, and also like dry and detached, um, coupled with the third house, which is also kind of Gemini. So like Gemini is not really very personable or very deeply emotional. It's just it talks and talks, and like, I guess, it could defend 1 + 1 = 3 when it wants to, or something like that. So that's how I see it. So yeah, it fits. Saturn in Leo in the 10th house. Okay, this one fits well too, I think, because Saturn is the planet of like discipline. This is how you discipline yourself. So obviously, in the psychology, if we kind of try to view this in the lens of psychology, he wants to make a mark, you know, like the lion. So he would discipline himself to make a mark in the world. So, or one way or another. So that's probably, it's going to add to the bravado of what he's doing, you know. So yeah, with Mercury and Mars coupled with Saturn in Leo there, and also especially he has Saturn in Leo in the 10th house, which is like the career house. 10th house is represented by Capricorn. That's another Earth sign. So he's going to stand out no matter what. That's how he will discipline himself. So this one, Saturn, I think, this planet, it comes with effort. It doesn't come easily. With Jupiter sign where it's placed, it's going to take more effort. No, sorry, I got lost a bit. I meant to say Saturn, Jupiter doesn't have much effort because it's expansive and all that. In Saturn, you discipline yourself with Saturn. So Saturn in Leo, he disciplines himself to make a mark in the world, and especially in Saturn, his Saturn in Leo is in the 10th house, the house of career. So yeah, we see it playing out. Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting contrast to his Jupiter, the one that I talked about earlier. Yeah, Jupiter in Capricorn in the 3rd house. So this one doesn't have, he wouldn't have to exert much effort because it's Jupiter, and well, he not. So yeah, he's naturally going to have some luck in the field of communication, because
Mhm.
3rd house is communication. So yeah, we see a lot of placements here where it's going to be, I mean, having some kind of platform and getting noticed, right? That's how I see it anyway.
Yeah. So just real quick, why don't you have any thoughts on like Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto?
Yeah, they make everything uneven. Sun rules Leo, Moon rules Cancer, right? Mars rules Aries and Scorpio. I'm talking about the traditional placement. Jupiter rules Pisces, Sagittarius. Jupiter rules Pisces and Sagittarius. Saturn would rule Capricorn, Aquarius. So like it's equal when and symmetrical when we consider like the seven, well, the sun, when we try to map each everything with the seven original planets. But when Neptune, Uranus, and Pluto, if you chart it out, it's not going to be, it kind of violates the principle of astrology, which is it has to be symmetrical and even. So yeah, that's why I don't consider the outer planets. And also the Uranus, its association with Aquarius is quite off to me. So yeah, Uranus is about rebellion and genius. I guess some form of eccentricity and unconventional, being unconventional and all that kind of stuff. So well, Aquarius is well, they may have those traits, but I think they are stretched out and exaggerated with its association with Uranus. It makes more sense to me that it will be ruled by Saturn because it would want to change society, and as a water bearer, the symbol of like serving mankind. So it would want to change things in a very structured, progressive way, maybe politically speaking. Yeah, but it's not supposed to be outlandish. Like the outer planets, in my opinion, like especially Uranus, they try to make it, they force fit it, in my impression. It's not like that you could not, maybe you could, it's not like maybe you couldn't include that in your analysis. I would technically say that Uranus is to Aquarius or something like that. Like I would stick with the original planets and their original associations with the zodiac, and then leave the rest of the outer planets as like extra fluff. That's how I would see it. But so you could include it or not, but like I would not. Aren't going to be my major points.
I don't agree with it, but yeah, I get what you mean. I guess people
Yeah,
have different views of it. Jupiter,
yeah,
Capricorn in the 3rd house is actually a placement that I have as well. Jupiter stays in each sign for about a year and takes about 12 years to go all the way around the zodiac. So it's a kind of an interesting dynamic. For me, it kind of seems like there is no such thing as manifestation. You kind of got to work for everything because Jupiter's about
right.
growth, luck, and expansion and things like that. And it's making this conjunction to his moon, and it's in this moody, drodgy, well, not really moody, but very soul and sulking and cold Capricorn, making him a very cold person and kind of accentuating that. But he probably does have great speaking skills and intellect and things like that, and he's able to articulate himself in a very large and charismatic way. But let's go over the planets real quick. Saturn is Leo in the 10th house, and this is dictator poster boy stuff right here. I was looking at my son's chart yesterday, and he has a Saturn 10th house too, which is kind of scary.
Uh,
But
I have
Leo, he
Saturn
really
10th
wants.
house.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, I'm
It's
scary. No,
definitely
I'm
like
kidding.
it can be scary.
Okay, go ahead.
But anyways, it's a conjunct here the
Yeah,
MC,
right.
which is 9 degrees, or actually 4 degrees, I should say. So it's kind of a loose conjunction. It's 9 degrees, but yeah, this is your 10th house is your public image, the way society sees you as a whole, kind of your career. And well, he was a dictator for a living, and it's in Leo where he has to be kind of in the spotlight, in charge. Everybody has to see him. So that is some very strong energy there. So very controlling, very domineering in a very look at me, flashy sort of way. And I like
Yeah.
Uranus. So one thing I do see with like a lot of 12th house placements and a lot of stuff kind of going down here with the Nadir, it's not really anything conjunct with it, I guess. Well, it's 9 degrees and that's 16 degrees. No, that's not a conjunction. But the 12th house represents, it's a house of troubles traditionally, but also represents prisons and things like that. And he was in prison. And while he was in prison, what did he do? He wrote Mein Kampf, which is a German for my struggle. So I forgot what he did exactly. He was in some kind of beer hall and he tried to do a coup, I think it was, and he went to prison for some time. And he wrote Mein Kampf, which is about his story. And like you said, it was about revolution, rebel rousing, changing society, going against the grain. And he wrote this book and kind of his manifesto of like what things were to come. So while he was in prison and it's retrograde, so he kind of had these ideas very internally, and he kind of had this internal friction, and all this stuff was going like he's supposed to be this light, fluffy, charismatic person, but he also has like this deep hatred and stuff going on. And he actually does have his IC in a Aquarius and not Capricorn. Interesting. Yeah, but I completely disagree with the Aquarius Saturn rule in Aquarius. It doesn't make any sense to me because Saturn likes to keep things in order,
Ooh,
likes to keep things the way
scary.
they are, and Aquarius and Uranus like to change things. So they kind of go against each other. But this
Mm-hmm.
Neptune Pluto conjunction, which I'll talk about real quick, is pretty damning in the 8th house, the house of death in Gemini. As I mentioned before, his siblings, which is really about the 3rd house, and he probably had strong emotions towards that. They had some kind of mental retardation, some sort of intellectual disability. I forgot what it was exactly like that. So he kind of saw humanity as like this perfect need of
Mm-hmm.
looking beautiful and looking blonde and tall and things like that. Maybe that was some kind of repressed sexual energy he had there. And there's a lot of repressed sexual energy here. But
Mm-hmm.
Neptune is about fantasy, illusions, psychosis, and social ideals. And planets about, or Pluto's about death and sexual taboos and things that we don't like to talk about that are not so nice. And Gemini is about siblings. I got a little bit of a piggyback here off Xeon, I got to mention. Got some of these ideas, but he did have some obvious visions and dreams about genocide and eugenics and all these terrible things. And
Uh-huh.
his conjunction here kind of is pretty damning, really. Visions of death and visions of biological experiments and Auschwitz and Joseph Mengele and all this weird stuff. So he had these deep fantasies of just eliminating the Jews. I guess originally they wanted to deport the Jews to Madagascar, but the British patrolled those islands and they couldn't do it. They supposedly wanted to deport them somewhere in some kind of mountains in Asia, but the Russians had a stronghold there. So, well, their next conclusion
Yeah.
was, well, let's exterminate them. Is there anything you want to touch on, like angles or aspects or anything like that? I was going to go into his nodal analysis.
Well, it's interesting that all of his outer planets are in the water houses, right?
Is what's in a Waterhouse?
The outer planets, his Neptune, his Pluto, and Uranus.
Yeah. All right. So I'm gonna do a nodal analysis on Hitler here, which is really interesting. I think you could probably say, like, well, he's not that bad of a guy until you really look into his nodes. Like the South node here, it
Uh-huh.
kind of up in the air. Like if you believe in reincarnation and karma and things like that, that's kind of like what you were in your past life and kind of what energy you carry over in this life that's kind of holding you back and not serving you well. that is in Capricorn in the third house, obviously. So he kind of always has to be right. He has to be in control. He has to kind of have the final say in things. And like I said before, it's intercepted because the house of Placidus, the third house, is kind of swallowing up the sign of Capricorn, as it is up here in Cancer with the ninth house in Cancer. So he's unable to kind of express those in a healthy manner, and he kind of keeps it internal and bundled up. So he probably has all these
Mm-hmm.
ideas and all these fantasies and things like that. And just Jupiter here and the moon are just kind of expanding and kind of
Mm-hmm.
constricting things even more and making this deep, dark,
Mm-hmm.
moody hatred he has towards himself and others. And he kind of needs to get away from
Mm-hmm.
that. And the ruler of the South Node, the ruler of Capricorn, is Saturn up here in the 10th house. So you kind of see how he expressed that. As I mentioned before, Saturn in the 10th house in Leo, he's kind of like this
Yeah.
dictator. So that's some kind of nasty shit that kind of transpired there. And we'll look at that.
Mm-hmm.
He's making a trine over here to his Mars and Venus in Taurus in the 7th house. So again, he likes to control people. He's impulsive. He likes to kind of be in charge and boss people around. So, and this is making a sextile actually to his North Node.
Yeah.
So one way he
Mm-hmm.
could have done that is been a little bit more caring and a little bit more intimate and a little bit more endearing with people. What he kind of needed to go towards, which he didn't do, was his North Node is in Cancer, and he was trying to become an artist. I think that would have been a good thing in the right direction.
Right.
Interestingly enough, he painted pictures of buildings around Europe, so it kind of goes into themes of foreign cultures and long distance travel. So he was creating art, which
Yeah.
is also very in tune with the moon and
Yeah.
everything like that.
Mm-hmm. But yeah. Wait. Sorry. North Node in Cancer. That's also like. I mean, like, so it's supposed to mean like he's heading towards a direction of like finding like the perfect family or something like that, or like from working hard to, you know, um I guess fighting like the home life or something. Maybe that's why some of his paintings have a homey feel to them, or like maybe some kind of nostalgia, maybe, I don't know. So like North Node is where you're supposed to go, right? Like it's the North Star. So maybe that's what's in his heart. As corny as that sounds, maybe that's really what he wants or something.
Yeah, maybe being more of a family man instead of a workaholic. Because he, like I said, towards the end, he was just
Yeah.
driving himself into the ground, ignoring his health, trying to win the war,
Uh,
and he just didn't want to give up. And the war was already long lost before it even happened.
yeah.
Also, his south node is conjunct his, or making a square to his Uranus, which is also by defunct making a square to his north node. So his need for change and revolution and doing things his way in a very odd, eccentric, demeaning way or domineering way kind of was holding him
Uh-huh.
back. So he kind of needed to
Uh-huh.
balance that. Like maybe he could have found something good and peaceful and something like that, but he had this stronghold of how he wanted to keep people like in
Uh-huh.
control. He wanted to control people. It's all about control down here because it is
Yeah.
an earth sign.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but anyways, like yeah, like you were saying, like he need to just go toward like more of a family life and having like an intimate home amongst people and things like that. But he was just stuck in his workaholic tendencies of just I want to be in
Yeah.
charge and I want to be the leader. I want people to see me as the main man, kind of that sense. And also his North
Right.
Node and Chiron, he was really meant to heal himself and heal others. Art is very healing for people. I'm not very artistic myself, but it is a loose conjunction of about 10 degrees, but we'll still count it for that sake. But I
Uh-huh.
think if he would have continued art, he seemed like he gave up quick. He was rejected from this one school twice. Like, why didn't he go to another school? He was so
Uh-huh.
he it was in Austria too, and he was like obsessed with Germany. He was obsessed with foreign culture, even though they're pretty similar. They speak German in Austria. It's not like I guess all that different, but for some reason he loved the German culture, and I guess the power they had. I guess since they were a world power at that time, I guess he really
Yeah.
like wanted that to get his foot in the door there.
Yeah.
But one thing he did do is he really admired the United States' industriousness, like how we were becoming a superpower at that time. We had two natural barriers, with was the Pacific Ocean and the Atlantic Ocean, which we were really hard to invade. So we kind of have that as an advantage for us. But again, that's a ninth house theme, going overseas and studying foreign culture. He really studied like how we enslaved the blacks and Irish and things like that, and that kind of gave us free economy of having workers. And he wanted the similar ideas and how we committed genocide basically, and we put Native Americans in reservations. He really admired that, and he really took a lot of influence from that. So that's kind of a toxic North Node trait, I think, like that. But we look at the ruler of the North Node, which is Cancer. The ruler of Cancer is the moon, which is down here conjunct all this stuff in his South Node. So I think that's where things really went wrong with him. He was really
Mhm.
supposed to have this dreamy, intuitive, family, loving, caring, empathetic nature, but his moon is down here in Capricorn with all this stuff. So I think that's kind of, he was like, oh, I'm going to try it. Oh, I'm really impatient with my art. I really want to get it out there to see people, but oh, I failed. No, I failed. Oh, okay. I'm just going to exterminate a race and rule Germany and take over the world. That's kind of how he went. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got though. But also all this stuff too is making a quincunx
So
to his,
are you implying that none of this would have happened if he was accepted in the art school?
I don't know. It's hard to say. I think
Yeah,
getting accepted into the art school and not giving up on it so easy would have been, a kind of a different story.
yeah.
It may have turned out different. Maybe in a
His
parallel
mind would have,
universe.
yeah. His mind would have been focused on like creating colorful, symmetrical aesthetics with that Libra ascendant and all that, with a lot of Venus influences in his chart. That might have been really distracted him greatly rather than focusing on, applying that kind of ideal or I guess vision for the nation or something.
Yeah. And like you said, like it's all in, like he has a lot of earth energy, and like, oh no, it can't be abstract. Art has to be this way. It has to be very strict and rigid. It has to be about buildings, but art can really be anything. And maybe if he just would have dabbled and kind of did what other people wanted and kind of took suggestions from other people, then maybe he wouldn't have been a brutal dictator and killed 6 million Jews. Who knows? It's hard to say how that would have turned out.
Mm-hmm.
But the South
Yeah.
Node stuff down here, the stellium he has in Capricorn, is also making a quincunx to his midheaven. It's also making a
Mm-hmm.
quincunx to Pluto and
Yeah.
Neptune
What
here.
does that mean? What's a
So
quincunx?
a quincunx is a minor aspect. It's 150 degrees. It's kind of like this tense things that you kind of need to integrate. It's going to come out rough and rigid at first, but once you kind of get the energy flowing, you're supposed to enhance it in a way. But it's also
Right.
making a sextile from this Pluto over here to his midheaven, so his house of career. So all these visions of death, destruction, and genocide are kind of making this excited, go lucky, flowing thing to
Uh-huh.
his midheaven here in Leo, which is conjunct his
Mm-hmm.
Saturn, and it's making a quincunx to all this. So what a yod is this forms a yod. It's two quincunxes and a sextile, and it makes like this triangle, and that's Hebrew for finger of God. So it's kind of pointing to his destiny. So what he's supposed to do
Mm-hmm.
is get these two energies right here, and he points it down here. So it's kind of like pointing. It's actually pointing, looks like at his moon or Jupiter. I don't know which one it is exactly, but they're so tightly conjunct it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So
Uh-huh.
he had these images of death and genocide and being the dictator and being in charge towards his emotional well-being. So that's kind of where things went wrong. So maybe he was destined to be a dictator. I'm sure it kind of was meant to be that way in a sick, disgusting way, and that's unfortunately how things
Yeah.
turned out for him. Anything else you
Yeah.
got?
Well, I'm just gonna say that maybe he's the kind of dictator. I mean, I'm not even exactly sure how much he is aware that he is like an evil quote unquote dictator. I mean, I'm saying basing it off of his INFJ and Libra type, I mean, influences. Because like I said, Libra, it wants to, it has, it's the scales, right? Like it has idea on how to make things like even or fair or just, So like it doesn't really, I think it does not see itself something like, oh, I'm a dictator, or it kind of sees itself as like, well, here's how we're going to make this like a just society or world. So I'm not even exactly sure. I'm not very sure about this, but I'm not exactly sure how much he thinks of himself as an evil dictator when all of that was happening. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see. I mean, in relation to his chart and also like his INFJ typing and things like that.
Maybe he didn't. Maybe you're right. Maybe he didn't see his dictator, like you said, that somebody who thinks they're doing bad things exhausts them, but a bad person who's doing they think they're doing good things kind of enthralls them. So maybe it was. And like you said, he
Mm-hmm.
did have like this sense of fairness and everything like that, but it was kind of junked up with this Uranus here in Neptune, or this Uranus conjunction here. So he had
Uh
very
huh.
odd, distorted, eccentric views of what was fair. So maybe this was fair in his mind, but in reality, was it fair? And maybe the
Mm-hmm.
people in Nazi Germany did see him as this courageous, lovable, charismatic leader, and maybe he saw
Mm-hmm.
himself as that way too. But with the Saturnian influence, it's kind of hard to exemplify like what he actually was. All right. Well, thank you everybody for watching. If you made it this far, I was
Yeah.
going to take birth chart readings myself, but I did have this thing of
Yeah.
bureaucracy where I have to get my fortune teller's license, so it's kind of on the back burner right now. So gotta
Yeah.
love bureaucracy. Yay, Saturn and
Yeah.
bureaucracy and Libra and bureaucracy and all that bullshit.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank
I
you guys
dislike
for watching.
bureaucracy too. I dislike Saturn. Yeah. 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 Okay.
All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you guys for watching. Have a good day.